So, in the very rare case where a leftist uses evidence, logic, and empiricism, how do I combat?
Holy bias, Batman. Hey, so I already agree with everything you say, and here's a crazy softball question. When the rarity happens that liberals are smart, fuck you.
Like,
Who is it and when is it? What you see in detriment of society? Wow. Let a transgender, let a woman be washed or something. Because it's a lie. The fact is that
That's not an answer. Because it's like, I get that you feel that in your heart, Ben, but as you say over and over again, facts don't care about your feelings. You have to explain why it is a lie. There's a chain of logic that you're missing. Because it is a lie, owned. You might as well have done this.
Workers everywhere in the nation need a higher minimum wage, and workers everywhere are inspired by what's happened so far in Seattle, and all eyes are in Seattle, are on Seattle. Workers everywhere are feeling empowered by how much workers in Seattle are fighting for their rights. So it has nothing to do with Seattle zip code. We need this to happen everywhere. But what's wrong with starting with Seattle?
it's true. You might say the workers of the world, for lack of a better word, are uniting. Are uniting. As far as the
It's easy to make facetious comments.
He didn't say any actual words. They were like, ha 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 ha. Lord have mercy. We get it. She's a socialist, and that's funny for some reason. But really quick, taxes are not the hallmark of socialism. They just aren't. We live in a world where both the most capitalist place on the planet and the most socialist place on the planet both have taxes. Taxes are not the hallmark of socialism. Collective ownership of the means of production is the hallmark of socialism. Taxes exist everywhere. Everywhere, all but fucking 10 countries has taxes. That means you're implying that every single country on the planet except for 10 of them are socialist, and that's not the case. Every country, almost every country has some form of taxes. That's just asinine. He's making a joke there that one is only funny to stupid people, but two, it's not a rebut. But I'm sure he's gonna bring one, but yeah. Wow. Except for neither did you. All you did say is no, it's not. And then people laughed. And then you accuse her of not providing data. She gave you an example of where the $15 hour minimum wage has been effective. She's from that place, Seattle. We've had a $15 minimum wage for $15 an hour minimum wage for years now, and we've only seen an increase in jobs and availability of jobs and such like that. So she showed you an example of a place that exists, has a strong economy, and a $15 hour minimum wage. All you did was say, "Nah, you got a standing ovation," and somehow that means you won. I swear his audience is as ridiculous as he is.
About white privilege, you talk about how white privilege is a made-up term by privileged minorities. So I was wondering if you can elaborate on some of the privileges that you think minority groups have. Okay, so in privileges in the law. So when I say privilege, I'm actually going to talk about legal standing. Former national.
So it doesn't matter when you say privilege. See, white privilege is a sociological term. It has a sociological definition, and because it's a sociological concept or a theory of individual interactionalism, you have to use a sociological definition when talking about it. Sure. You might find more or less equity in law, and not even necessarily the execution of law, but the application to it. You might find some equity there, but that's like being mad at cosmology because it doesn't explain how cells work. That's the entirely different science on the face of it. You're going to go to the legality of where places don't have privilege, yet the term white privilege has nothing to do with law. It's not a legal thing at all. It's a sociological thing. It's a sociological white privilege. It describes a sociological phenomena that occurs. It's an observable phenomena. You can notice it. Society tends to have a skew or bend toward white things, toward white culture, Eurocentrism. I can tell you about Franz Ferdinand, who he was, what war had caused, how he died. I can tell you all that stuff. I cannot tell you anything beyond Africa beyond 200 years. You get rated on how good or bad of a person you are based on your knowledge of Eurocentric histories, customs, and concepts. Whereas that's not the case, and that's not equal. So white privilege describes a sociological phenomena or a sociological skew toward whiteness, and it's measured by that said bias. So you take. I have a cousin named Tanjanika. Um, Despite the fact we're similar in intelligence, me talking like this, and my name being Darron Lewis, which are both Gaelic, I tend to get more clout than she does in certain places. And so while white privilege might not exist in every single context, that's also not at all what it's claiming. It's a sociological context. So anytime you talk about it outside of the terms of sociology, you're not talking about white privilege, you're talking about something else.
Affirmative action is a privilege. Subprime mortgages designed to appeal to minority loan to minority recipients without proper qualifications. That is a privilege.
Sure. Then do you mean like how all of the American suburbs were formed? Because that's exactly what happened. White privilege is that being okay when it happened to white people and not being okay when it happens to black people in an effort to come out with a similar socioeconomic standing. But that's white privilege. He just demonstrated exactly what that looks like. It's a sociological bend or a skew toward white acceptability, toward white fragility, and things of that sort. It's a skew toward whiteness. See how he's not at all just completely glossing over the fact, and we're all completely glossing over the fact that if you live in a suburb or if you see a suburb, that was the direct product of government playing favorites in a skew toward whiteness. There's a whole video that I think Adam Ruins Everything does a better description of it than I could here. But long story short, insurance companies and the government went together and marched what neighborhoods were red, and those were all the ones that black and brown people lived mostly. And then so they gave those, if you lived in one of the red spaces, you weren't able to get one of the government-backed loans as opposed to if you were. And that's why you see these stark differences in these neighborhoods and stuff like that. But so that's asinine.
Those are a couple examples of privilege. Would also be these being another.
Not white privilege. White privilege applies to one specific sociological context, and it's only sociological. And also, you're not talking about legal at this point. You're just talking about how law enforcement does and doesn't operate. Yeah.
Because they don't understand the problems of minority communities. That's privilege. And by the way, these privileges are not helpful, but as an overall matter, it is certainly a privilege. It's very difficult.
Wait. Privilege is simply acknowledging the fact that a police officer from an entirely different part of the neighborhood, from an entirely different part of town, who's never had to sort of experience or need to have a necessity to understand the sociological ills that community faces, simply acknowledging that as a privilege. Simply saying, hey, this cop doesn't know anything about us, apparently is a privilege to Ben Shapiro. This is why you don't ask attorneys about sociology. They don't know what they're talking about. This is a shining example of this. Ben Shapiro is just rammering on about something he has no concept of. This is why you don't go to attorneys for sociology. It's asinine.
For me to see how it's not a privilege, you get a lower score on the SAT than the Asian guy who's living in exactly the same circumstance. He gets penalized 50 points. You get 230 points on the SAT. That is definitionally.
That would be neat if that's what happened. You get a minority bump in first of all, Asians also get a minority bump on the SATs. However, the SAT, I think it'd be unfair if the SAT test, for example, had questions in there that would only apply to certain socioeconomic groups that also have a skew toward whiteness. Like, what's a regatta? I think that'd be unfair. Oh, shit, those things are in there. There's an advantage toward whiteness in the SATs too, in that they're written and curtailed around a curriculum that mandates the knowledge of white history, cultures, and concepts. That's just what that is. Sure, you'll get a couple hundred extra points, I guess, for being of color, but it's nothing compared to the sociological privilege that exists within the SAT. Literally, what is a regatta? It turns out it's a boat race.
So there's you disagree.
Yeah, these are terms that
In the world,
Says the guy who wears a ridiculous hat because a friend of his imaginary friend told him to. Sorry, I hate it when Ben Shapiro talks about things that he deems ridiculous or nonsensical because that man is a it's just a walking non sequitur. First of all, this guy thinks that progressive politics and Democrats are hands down the most oppressive thing to have ever befallen an American citizen in his life. Yet he lives in Los Angeles, and before you go into this, he lives there because he's Orthodox Jewish and he has to have his meat prepared a certain way. Well, then, ding, 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 congratulations. It turns out that maybe California Democrats aren't as oppressive as he likes to accuse they are, because as he likes to accuse them of being. Because apparently he's found only one place in the country where he's allowed to be his authentic self, and it's apparently the socialist hellhole that censors speech and anything religious. He's a walking non sequitur. The guy makes absolutely no sense and stuff. Yo, it's his religion. His religion is ridiculous. He has to live in a place that he deems absolutely tyrannical, ran by these evil tyrants of progressive people and who recycle and attend museums, so he can have his meats prepared a special way. He also literally wears the world's most pointless headgear. It just doesn't do anything. It's the opposite. I'm wearing a hat. This at least keeps my head dry. There's a bill for the sun. It sits back. It's the most pointless piece of headgear on the planet. It literally doesn't do anything useful. So it always gets me when Ben Shapiro tends to talk about things he thinks are ridiculous or like, because the man is just a walking non sequitur.
We're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about diversity. We're going to talk about white privilege. We're going to talk about trigger warnings. We're going to talk about microaggressions, and we're going to talk about safe spaces. So,
all things that he knows nothing about. Awesome, cool. Hey, attorney, why don't we talk about law? Let's do that. No? We're all going to learn about sociological concepts and theories from a lawyer? Cool. All right, after this, I have a dentist appointment with my vet.
the Hall of Fame of stupidity. Now, this exercise may affect trigger some people, so consider this your trigger warning. I don't care how you feel. And if your feelings are...
And Ben Shapiro, this might make you cry on your show for a straight hour because you've literally done that about two parents who chose to raise one, count them, one genderless child, and you screamed and cried for a whole hour about three people who live like thousands of miles away from you. So let's go ahead and break out the mold. Facts don't care about your feelings, and why are you constantly bitching about everything? I cannot go to the Daily Wire and find something you're not complaining about. You dedicated a whole thing and you sang ridiculously because you are mad that the Louvre, a museum that's in a country you don't even live in and which carries a language you don't speak, is mad that they hosted a Beyonce music video, a person who does not know or care who you are and has nothing to do with you. That you were angry about that. All you do is bitch about shit that just simply doesn't concern you. You are an Orthodox Jew who lives in Los Angeles. Eat your weirdly prepared meats, wear your literally useless headgear, and be about your day. But in the meantime, your whole livelihood is dedicated to just bitching and crying about things that have nothing to do with you. No one's talking to you. Nobody. These two parents who decided to raise their genderless kids, they weren't thinking, oh, here we go, let's stick it to Ben Shapiro. No, they didn't give a fuck about you. They were not of your concern. And you are here crying, constantly weeping about shit that other people are doing. It just happens all the time. So don't act like you're doing us a favor and breaking it to us that, oh man, oh, please let us know the real world can hurt sometime easily, Ben. And don't pretend like you're doing us a favor, like you're teaching us some shit, because you literally cry about everything, just everything. Just there's so much crying on Twitter. It's just a bitch fest.
I'm not sorry.
Oh, also, yeah, you give power to words. When you did going back to the Beyonce video with the fucking when she did it in the Louvre, when he was reading the lyrics, he wouldn't say ape shit, and he was like ape bleep. And first of all, which was ridiculous. But second of all, you're worried about us getting triggered, and you give that much power to words. It's a word. Shit. It's a word. Did you see how I'm not hurt at all whatsoever? Shit. I don't think anyone died as a direct result of me saying the word. But yeah, you are a free speech person and you put limits on yourself because you give unnecessary power to a word. And I'm supposed to be easily triggered? Got it, Roger, 10-4 understand.
Anyway, The reason I say no, I'm not going to work, not doing. The reason I say no is because fire problem, and the last time we got they put fire alarm in the other one. And I know there were not many of them.
Clever.
Okay. The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true.
It is. And if you're going to make that claim again about sociology, a field in which you have no experience, I need you to provide evidence for why that claim isn't true. You are not a sociologist. You do not know anything about critical sex or critical gender theory. You don't know about either of those things. When you make a definitive claim, like something that is the cornerstone to the social sciences, when you make that claim, you then need to provide evidence so we can follow a chain of logic to get to the conclusion you've apparently teleported to. Because you literally just said, this, no, it isn't. Cool. How the fuck did you determine it wasn't? What studies did you do? What did you undergo? Did you just say I used my eyes and determined this wasn't a thing? Because that's not how science works. That's not at all how that happened. So just saying that is not true. Can you give a bitch a reason, or am I just supposed to sit here and guess? Like Ben Shapiro, everyone says leprechauns aren't real, but they're wrong. Leprechauns exist. See how there's no chain of logic? I didn't go into bothering how leprechauns exist, what they look like, what they do, where you can find them. I didn't give you any sort of evidence. There's no chain of logic. I just teleported from my premise to my conclusion, and I'm not going to tell you how. Ben Shapiro is not a sociologist. Please stop going to attorneys about sociology problems.
I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying that you are not the sex which you claim to be. You're still a human being.
I'm saying to you, I'm not. Fuck you. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna call you a woman. He didn't answer why it was wrong. He just answered why he didn't want to do it. But that's not the question she asked. We don't care why you don't want to do it. We don't care whether or not you're going to do it. We're asking you, why is it objectively wrong? What is wrong about it? You say it's not true. All this other, I don't give a fuck why you won't do it. I didn't say, can you tell us why, Ben Shapiro, you wouldn't call someone by their preferred gender pronoun? No, the question was, why should we all do it as a society? What's the harm in all of us getting together to decide we're going to call people what the fuck they want to be called? What's the harm in that? Then he goes and telling you why he wouldn't. No one gives a fuck why you wouldn't. You wouldn't because you're overly emotional. That's why you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it because you'll just bitch and cry about, hey, I have to call someone I think is a woman a man, and that makes me sad. No, actually, that's not even why he's crying. He's crying because people want him to do that. People want me to do something, and I'm Ben Shapiro, and I'm going to cry about. That's exactly what's happening.
And you're a human being with an issue that I wish Godspeed in dealing with in whatever way you see fit. But if you're going to dictate to me,
what if I see it fit by not wanting to do anything with it? It's a paradox. You don't even know what you're saying. I think I don't feel comfortable. I don't think you should want society to call you a different gender. I think you should deal with your gender dysphoria how you see fit. Okay? I think I've landed on I would like society to call me a different gender. God.
I'm supposed to. And men are women and women are men.
You aren't supposed to do shit. She didn't ask you what you were supposed to do. You aren't supposed to do a motherfucking thing but answer her question. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do fuck all. You don't have to do anything. No one's telling you what Ben Shapiro should do. Again, nobody said your fucking name. What should we do as a fucking society? But on that hand, I will tell you something, Ben Shapiro. You, by all means, are free to misgender people until you're blue in the face. Every trans person you see, you can fucking spin a big giant bingo ball full of balls with two genders on them and pull one out, and that's what you call that fucker. You are entitled to do that. You can do that all you want to. You're blue in the face. Just be ready for the sociological consequences that will follow. See, the reason why you're here at this podium is because you're upset, Ben. You're upset that people are changing and they're developing and they're learning these things about complex systems and they happen to be quite different from the world you're used to. You're very upset about this. That's why you're at this patio, at this podium, and you wish people would stop. But here's the thing: they're not going to, and they don't have to. So you can totally misgender people all you want to in the face. Just be prepared to spend the rest of your miserable life standing at podiums yelling at college kids about the way things used to be. And it will never stop for you. You will never get to a point where you'll say, I'm done, move on. Because instead, you'd rather live your life as a living, breathing apology as society continues to steam forward and you're stuck in your traditionalist ways because things can be complicated and then that makes you sad. You're going to be left behind. You're going to spend your life a walking, breathing apology and an embarrassment to people who do understand critical gender theory and sociological concepts and do understand the difference between facts and pure emotion, and you're going to look like a garbage human being, and you will basically die a living, breathing apology for all the ridiculous things you continue to say because of your fucking ego. So, but by no means should it ever be illegal for you to misgender somebody. However, there are consequences that you will deserve because society will march forward whether you're ready for it or not, and the longer you wait to get comfortable, the more fucked you're going to be. I've seen people get left out of employment opportunities, relationship opportunities, educational opportunities. I've seen people lose friend groups, partners, all kinds of shit simply because they wanted to continue to call someone they feel is a man a man. I've seen that happen, and it's rightfully so. No one's entitled to be with you. No one's entitled to rent shit to you because of something you believe or don't believe in. That's asinine. No one's entitled to do those things for you. So, unless you're ready for a shitty life at this podium forever, get with the fucking program. Or don't get with the program and deal with the fallout. I'll see you in 80 years, Ben Shapiro, and you let me know your decision.
No. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens our subjectives.
It's not biology, and you're not modifying it. There's nothing biological about gender at all whatsoever, period.com_highlight.net. There's nothing biological about gender. And again, you cannot do that, Ben. But one, the question was, hey, Ben, what should you do? That wasn't the question. The question was, what should society do? And additionally, Ben, continue to be an asshole, Ben. Continue to misgender people all you want to, Ben. But don't get fucking pissy when the president's trans and all this trans pride shit's happening. You're a bitter old person still at a podium at a college going, these damn kids are changing everything until you fucking keel over. And that's going to be your entire legacy, just trying to stop the train of progress. Here rests Ben Shapiro. He didn't stop the train. Put that shit on his fucking tombstone.
Sense of what you are. Millennials are more likely to be leaning Democrat, or now socialism is on the rise. How do we convey conservatism to them and show them the light? What people on the left tend to
I'll tell you how you convey conservatism to us. It's actually really simple. Turn us into children again. That should do it. I get told all the time that you need to understand their perspectives and you need to understand where they're coming from. And what they fail to realize is, I do. You got to remember, conservatism is very easy thought. I'm not at all saying this to be insulting. On a surface level, the concepts of conservatism seem to make sense because these are things that are very simple systems and they're very easy to see with the naked eye. They're very tangible, and that's why we held these things when we were kids. I remember that I was having a conversation with some of my friends when I was in middle school, and we were talking about black student unions because we have one on campus. And he was like, well, we have black student unions. Why can't we have white student unions? And I remember going, yeah, what's the problem with white student unions? Just having one race student union seems a little racist. But it didn't take much critical thought at all to come to the realization that, it's because schools and their curriculum in general are just white. There's no need for them to form a club because the school is their club. They learn white history, they hold white events, they speak white languages, and you get bonus points if you speak extra white languages. That's already a club. So this club is built in response to not necessarily having a space for people who look like them, and so shit like that. Like that's what that is.
from people on the left about politics is socialism is wrong. It's the
Oh,
right
my
thing.
bad. Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yes, conservatism is very, very simple thought. It doesn't take a lot to sort of decipher. Libertarianism or sort of apoliticism in general is sort of our default position. And then sort of over time, we grasp these simple concepts around. You'll hear libertarians in particular. It always makes me funny when it always makes me laugh when they do it because I've had it on more than one occasion where they'll cite, oh, everything I need to learn, I learned in kindergarten. That book is a colloquial name. That is not true. You did not learn everything you need to know about life in kindergarten because kindergarten didn't teach you shit about taxes and conglomerations and LLCs. We didn't do any of that stuff. Like, nothing we do is like kindergarten. It's wildly different. It's nowhere near the same. It has entirely different structures. That name is just a colloquialism. But they say that because it seems so simple. Don't steal. And there's no need to do anything beyond that. But that's not the world we live in. It's way more complex than that. And whether you ignore it or not is independent on whether or not that's the case. You keep trying to make these things fit and they don't because that's just not how society works. This isn't your playground. This is life and it sucks and people can do things that have more power than you. Whether or not they shouldn't, they do, and that does nothing for the people they're currently exerting it on. Like this is happening. You can be as pissed as you want, but it's not like elementary school. Conservative ways of looking at the world are very easy. They're graspable. They don't change. They're awesome. They're the same because that's just the way they look. But a little critical thought and a little deeper looking into it, and you're skeptic of it. So when people say that I don't understand the other side or I don't know what I'm talking about because I can't see it through different perspectives, I had that perspective for a majority of my life. It wasn't until I learned shit that those things started to fall to pieces. And you see this all the time. This is why they hate colleges, because colleges are a place where you tend to, learn shit. And it's not because of any sort of bias that universities have. They're not sitting there teaching, be liberal all the time. Conservatives are bad. They're not doing that. It's just the testable, demonstrable facts about reality tend to not skew in conservative ideologists' favor. They just don't. They don't. They say there's an immigrant crisis. Reality doesn't reflect that. They say universal healthcare would tank economies. Reality doesn't reflect that. They say that transgenderism, is stupid or bad or weird. Reality doesn't reflect that. Well, like, they oppose these things because it's easy. So I do get where they're coming from. And it sounds more logical, provided you don't want to do any sort of thinking whatsoever. But that's not the world. Sorry.
What to do? You're rich, that guy's poor. Wouldn't it be more moral if we're both not quite as polarized on the spectrum? If you have $10, does it really hurt you to give up $2 to that guy who has $3? Aren't you both better off now? And the answer is, just because I exist doesn't mean I get to steal your money. We have to determine how that money got in your pocket.
What the fuck are you talking about? You literally just said, "Oh, well, we have these different socioeconomic classes that are clashing, and this just was drawing this divide. But wouldn't it be better if they were just nice instead?" Yeah, dipshit. But see, here's the thing: we have to come to a table and negotiate about some shit, and right now it's very unfair. It's very skewed. Like, it would be nice if we could just all get over it, but nah, there's people being boned, and that simply isn't fair. And despite how you feel about fair, life sure isn't fair. But there are people actively working, like actively, to make it as unfair as humanly possible. And to me, that seems more egregious than trying to make things more fair. So all of you who respond to stupid shit, or all of you who respond stupidly to things like universal health care and income inequality, saying, well, life isn't supposed to be fair, you're completely being oblivious intentionally to the concept that there are people actively working to make it unfair on purpose. Sorry about it, but not really. Like, I don't tell you.
In the first place, there's something deeply immoral to suggesting that I am owed something by you simply because I'm here and we're in the same room. Okay, that's not true. I don't know how you got your money. Maybe you worked your way up from poverty. Maybe you made a lot of money because you invented some new GMO that allowed billions of people to be fed. Right? In that case, you deserve the money. And guess what? You deserve the money in a free market economy because people were willing to engage in a voluntary transaction with you. Voluntary transactions, consent. This is the nature of capitalism.
So now you're on to capitalism. You just jump topics. So, one, I mean, that I didn't even know where we go. Oh, yeah, he's talking about volunteerism and capitalism. Not everything I do in the free market is voluntary. I am sociologically and biologically compelled to eat food. I am sociologically compelled to get that food from a supermarket. That is not a choice that I have. I must get my food in that particular fashion. And it just so happens that Kroger has basically a monopoly on all the grocery stores in my area. I live in Seattle, and there's a big brand here called QFC and Fred Meyer, and they're both owned by Kroger. Kroger has a monopoly on where I get my food from, basically. And there's no evidence that if you got rid of the state tomorrow, that monopoly would go away. There's no reason why that would. I could see that being a thing. It doesn't make any sense. Um, so there's a lot of things that happen in capitalism that still force me away from my money, right? But the thing we need to challenge is money the ultimate expression of freedom, or is it not? Because if we're being realistic and you're going to liken the fluidity of my personal capital and link that directly to the amount of freedom I have, then you're looking in the wrong direction as it relates to taxes. Because not only do taxes take less of my money, but I can move to a place where there are no income taxes. I basically can't move to a place where there's no rent. Rent takes up a significant more of my freedom, i.e., money, than taxes do. Taxes, I pay about $189 a month for taxes. My rent alone is $2,100. And sure, you could be like, well, then just move to a cheaper place. Unless there's a place under $189 a month, the government still takes less of my money than capitalism does. And I have to have a place to live. It's a sociological requirement for me to obtain a job, for me to obtain money, to purchase food, which I'm biologically required to have. It's a precursor. They're necessary.
Seizure of property, seizure of wealth, force, compulsion. These are the nature of socialism.
White family worth,
Incorrect, just because you say that. Just throw it out there.
in terms of financial worth, is 69 times more than that of black families. Given this disparity, how can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality? Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. When you have a culture that doesn't, and when it, you know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me.
I don't know if you saw this, but did you see how triggered Ben Shapiro just got right now? I really hope you saw it because this is a dude who hates when people get triggered. And do you see how in his feelings he just got? He got so in his feelings, he demanded, instead of making an argument like he was going to, he demanded that someone else argue for something that they're not even talking about. Did you see it? Did you see it? The topic was income inequality. And they asked a general question to the audience that if race, that we see these disparities along racial lines, how is race not a part of it? Ben Shapiro goes to begin to start explaining, but he opens with something stupid and that has nothing to do with the subject matter. People laugh, and then when they laugh at him for saying something stupid, he flips the switch on the lady who threw her arm up and demanded that she explain something about incarceration rates, which have basically that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about income inequality. You see how triggered he just got right now? He got so in his feelings that he fucking jumped on a lady for throwing her arms up because he got fucking embarrassed for saying something stupid and demanded that she make an argument for something we're not even talking about. Ben Shapiro is a goddamn joke. He is, and not a funny one. He's a joke. He's a joke. And his hat is still stupid. It's the most pointless piece of headgear on the planet. It's just so dumb. It's so dumb. Explain to me what that has to do with fucking income inequality. Also, really quick, that's wrong. White kids shoot each other more often than black kids do. Axiomatic. The data is out there. Like,
Whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why they.
explain to me what any of that has to do with income. Clearly, crime isn't necessary for income equality. You're citing all these things related to crime, and I think you're making an attempt to say because there's high crime, therefore the income is unequal. But that would imply that there's no such thing as people who commit crime who aren't wealthy, which we know is bullshit. There are tons of people who are wealthy who also commit crime. So sorry, Ben. I know you're trying to make a claim that black culture is more criminal, therefore they don't have that much money, but you're applying criminality as a necessity for income inequality, and it's not. You see income inequality independent of criminal action. You get everyone on earth could be at peace right now and there'd still be income inequality, stupid. So how about you answer the fucking point and stop making other people make your argument for you because you just got straight embarrassed. Like, don't do that.
Why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, it has nothing to do with culture. Explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960?
Just about, yeah. More or about the same. It's just in different places now. It just looks different, right? It's implicit. It's moved upstairs. It's gotten altered. It's changed the way it looked. This is a place where now I can go in whatever neighborhood I want. But instead of saying, "Hey, you're under arrest for being black," it's we're going to detain you for suspicious activity. Change the words up all you want. The actions are still more or less the same. But I'd still like to know what any of the fuck to this has to do with income inequality. You just named a bunch of other you just bounced across several fields of sociology, criminality theory. You bounced into social equity. You bounced into so many things. Where the question was about income inequality. What's all this extra nonsense you're bringing up, bro? Do you have an argument against income inequality or not? What's good?
It is. Please explain to me how that happened. So
he didn't say anything. That's what kills me on Ben Shapiro people. He didn't say anything. This is what happened in that last video. I'm going to do a quick sum up. The guy asked him, if income tends to fall along racial lines, then how does income inequality have nothing to do with race? He said it has to do with culture, and he got laughed at by the audience. He got triggered, got in his feelings, and then fucking yelled at the woman who threw her arms up and demanded that she reply to a question that or reply to a question that was for Ben, and he wanted her to reply to questions about shit they weren't even talking about incarceration rates and crime rates and about single mother rates and all kinds of shit like that. We are talking about income. And you were going to answer why income inequality isn't tied to race. Don't make me do it, especially do it in ways that we're not even talking about.
It's not my opinion. It's just fact.
Don't even know what that was. I'm just going to say it was wrong, because anytime you just conclude something's bullshit without a chain of logic again, fuck you. You're just saying unicorns exist, mic drop.
The 78 cents on the dollar myth is just that. It's a myth. Time magazine actually found as early as 2010 that in the 50 biggest cities in the United States, women were actually earning more than men. They have the same job qualifications, the same number of years in the workforce, the same number of hours worked. The reason that women on average are paid less is because women take time off, they take less risky jobs, they don't take as much time at work.
And whose fault is that? See, this is what kills me, because all you fucking just go get another job people need to understand something. Jobs work two ways. I have to go apply for one, and then someone has to pick me. That's how jobs work. It's not I can just go grab them from a big, fruitful jobs tree. It's not a thing. I have to apply for them, and they have to pick me. It turns out jobs are pretty much similar across the board. I can move from fast food here and fast food here, and it turns out I'll be paid about the same. There's those occasional exceptions, but again, going to go apply for them is literally half the battle, and unfortunately, it's not even the most important part. Their selection process is. So, when we say, that it's their choices, they have to go do these things, there are jobs that women won't apply for because we're heavily traditionalists, and there's a lot of women out there, unfortunately, who believe that these places aren't for them, that's not what women do, and that's because of a sociological issue. However, there's also jobs where the employer won't hire women based on that same biases. They won't hire women because they're like, this job is strictly for men. You see these in things like the NFL and all kinds of stuff. Now, you may be like, well, the NFL is different because it's sports and they need big, strong people, and overwhelmingly men tend to be stronger than women. But the question is, tends to be, right? i.e., there are women who are stronger and faster than men. I'm not saying all, I'm not even saying the majority. I'm saying that they exist. If the qualifications you're looking for are strength and speed, why not look for strength and speed independent of gender? If I say I need someone who can lift my car and throw it 50 feet, and in front of me is a man and a woman, and they're both applying to do it, and this is something that would be normally done by men because it's a strength job. And if I were to just do this off the assumption that because he is male he is stronger, I could very much end up with a person who's not able to get the job done. So I go and I pick the man because men are usually stronger than women, and the car doesn't get tossed 50 feet. But the woman's like, I can do it, but I'm a woman. And I say, sorry, I need the car flipped, but I don't need it. That shit. That happens. Again, conservative thinking is so simple until you realize that's just not how the world works. It does different things.
They'd rather be home with their families, the choices that women make. And it's astonishing to me that feminists actually degrade those choices. So it's a terrible thing when a woman takes time off.
No, they don't. They think it's awesome when women take time off. In fact, we're kind of the only ones, and feminists are some of the only ones advocating for a longer paid time off so women who choose to have babies can take care of their families. What we tend to advocate is for that being a woman's choice, not because of sociological pressures, not because of this ridiculous idea that she has to do that, but is that something she wants to do? And if she wants to do it, that's awesome. I'm basically done with Ben Shapiro. I can't do all 10 minutes of this. It's honestly just getting mind numbing at this point. But I'm going to keep doing these because I really, 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 really need people to stop going to attorneys about sociology. It doesn't make any sense. I don't go to my dentist to talk about my dog. That's to talk about my dog's health. That's not what I do. It's asinine. So I'll be doing this again. Catch me on the next one. I'm out of 5,000. Bye. As soon as I figure out how to leave. I need to leave. No thanks. How do I leave? I can copy a link, or I can just leave. Nope. Wait, I don't know how to leave. I'm scared. No, I don't want to copy a link. I just want to leave. There we go.